You're listening to Seek Travel Ride, a podcast sharing bike adventures from people from all over the world. And this episode is sponsored by Old Man Mountain, makers of the most durable bike racks out there. If you want to head out on an adventure, you need to strap gear onto your bike, and Old Man Mountain have you covered in a myriad of ways. Head to oldmanmountain.com to find out more. Now, on to today's episode.
So I set off, ran up there, and there was no one the whole way. You'd see these yak skulls, and that was about it. And then you get there, and there was just this building, and there's smoke coming out of it. I say building, it was like a dry stone wall wedged underneath this boulder, smoke coming out of it. And this monk emerges in sunglasses and doesn't speak a word of English. I think it was 12k from the closest gravel track. He was just living there, and he had this little fire. He burnt yak poo. But to get there, I mean, I was walking through like 1.5 foot, 2 foot of snow to try and get to this lake. But he's living very simply. We went down, we broke the ice to fill up the kettle with some water from the lake, put it on, burning this huge pile of yak poo. Just a very special time. Just the whole concept of being surrounded by this amphitheatre of white mountain.
Welcome to Seek Travel Ride, where we share the stories and experiences of people taking amazing adventures by bike. Whether it's crossing state borders, mountain ranges, countries or continents, we want to share that spirit of adventuring on two wheels with our listeners. Hello listeners, Bella Malloy here, host of Seek Travel Ride, and I'm super excited for today's episode with our guest Matt Whitley. Now, it was March 2025 when Matt set out from Ho Chi Minh City. His bike was all loaded up and he's ready to take the adventurous route home back to the UK. Just under a year into this journey, and it's certainly taken him to some pretty extraordinary places. So far he's gone from Vietnam to China, Mongolia, through all places in Central Asia, the Himalayas, Pakistan, Afghanistan, Armenia, Georgia, Turkey, Greece, Albania. And now I'm speaking to him while he's in Italy. Along the way, he's also incorporated a lot of side quests. He's retraced routes his mum and dad rode 26 years ago, spent a chunky amount of time trekking through Kyrgyzstan with his sister, rode across the Tibetan Plateau with only a front brake working, crossed huge deserts, summited huge mountain peaks, and of course, it almost goes without saying, he's experienced overwhelming hospitality throughout. Matt chose bike travel because he knew it would provide the perfect way to explore a country's culture, history, and identity. It's a great way to connect with locals and opens many doors into interactions you'd simply not be able to have if you booked yourself onto a pre-packaged guided bus tour. But as with every adventure story, there's also many a misadventure along the way. Equipment breakdowns happen, unplanned and seemingly never-ending hiker bikes seem to be on your route map, sickness takes over, the weather challenges you both with heat and cold, and at times the very real danger of inadvertently being just a little bit too close to conflict than you'd planned for. I've lived vicariously through Matt's travels for many months now, so I'm actually really looking forward to hearing about the reality of this journey for him. Behind the amazing videos and incredible images that he's taken and shared, often the highs do come with lows, and there's certainly a level of intensity which Matt has sought out, both in the routes he's chosen to ride and where he's decided to travel to. So, listeners, what's it like when you take on an adventure like this, where seeking out these raw kind of moments is what you want to be living each and every day? Listeners, I'm sure we're about to find out. Matt Whitley, finally, a big warm welcome to the show.
Bella, hello. Thank you. So excited to be here.
It's awesome to be chatting with you, Matt, in one of the most interesting locations, I have to say. Listeners, Matt had to scope out a quiet place for this interview while he's in Italy, in Sicily. And where am I speaking to you from, Matt?
I've got my own office in a local police station, which is quite exciting.
Yeah, not a jail cell.
No, fortunately, I'm on the right side of the bars. It was really, really interesting and exciting just hearing that intro. Just half of it was like, really? Was that me? And then after a few seconds, it's like, oh yeah, that did happen. So that already brought back other memories.
I've said it with other guests before, actually, Matt. Sometimes I feel like my guests in the space of 1 year live like, 4 lifetimes of experiences. Experiences that you have that you just wouldn't do in the routine sort of Western 9 to 5 that we're used to. Maddie, I know you're a listener of the pod. You tune in on the road, which is awesome. So you're going to know what's coming up because I start my session with a question that I ask all my guests, and that is, Matt Whitley, do you remember the very first bike you ever rode?
I do. It was this yellow bike with dinosaur stickers all over it with stabilizers. I always was massively inspired and looked up to my parents. And my dad was a big mountain biker, so he was probably my biggest inspiration from before I can remember of just wanting to be able to ride a bike. I remember vividly one time riding this little dinosaur bike in a local National Trust park place, which is, if people in England aren't aware, it's places which is basically old estates or nice countryside. I think it was one of the times maybe I wasn't on my stabilizers, one of the first times, and I just careered off this path and went straight into this huge pile of nettles. And it really scarred me. And I remember just thinking, I'm never going to be able to ride a bike like dad, like mum. And it was, I guess, an early setback to being, everything isn't handed to you on a plate. And cycling is fun, but also it's crap at times.
Is that how you'd actually reflect back on your adventure so far? It is fun, but sometimes not so much?
Yeah, I'd say for people who haven't done it, it's very much like a drug. And that's what I say to people if I'm in like a short interaction. You have like mega high highs and mega low lows. It is alcohol really of, it feels amazing sometimes. And then equally when that hangover hits, it's terrible.
You know who you remind me of, Maddie? Straight off, Italian bike adventurer Giacomo Turco, who's currently he's just left Nigeria at time of recording. And he is very much like that. He would be there shaking your hand saying, oh my gosh, I feel you. And he would say that he's addicted. And, you know, that sort of bike travel addiction has hit. Like the highs are high and you seek them out, but then the lows come as well from seeking them out too sometimes.
For sure. But I think that's almost the best things in life. I think you can almost see all the most exciting environments have all of that. Climbing a mountain, it's beautiful when you get to the top, but going up, it can feel crap. It can feel terrible. Equally, the storm can come and it can feel worse, but equally the sun can come out and it's like, wow, this is the best place alive. And I think you really see all of that on the bike when you're living on the road, living in a tent, traveling, just in all the elements.
It takes me back to a video of yours that I saw back when you were in Tibet. And I think it was even titled, This is the Best Day of My Life. And you're riding up a pass that I think's higher than Mont Blanc, so it must be 5,000 odd meters high or wherever you're getting to. You're nodding because you must know where I'm talking about. And like the road just gets considerably more snowy and icy and bleak looking, but you are just there in like almost fits of hysterics going, this is amazing, look at the view, no one else is here.
Yeah.
Then the weather is horrible and it's freezing cold, but it's that high moment of just getting through something, feeling like you're being rewarded by it.
Yeah, for sure. Like definitely that moment was just surreal. I think it's almost just showing, so much of this trip has been showing myself what I'm capable of. That I had in the back of my mind on that day of, I can always turn around. If it gets too high, if I start hit like altitude sickness starts hitting me, I'll just turn my wheels around and just glide downhill. But equally, you have in your mind like, I can't give up. I keep on going, and you get to the stage where you're cycling for almost like 100 meters and having to stop to catch your breath. It's just out of this world, but equally, it's like, wow, I can't believe I'm here. Yeah.
There's also like this certain, I feel it more strongly when you're touring, riding up a mountain pass as well. And whether that's a mountain pass that for some people who live at sea level, a really hard mountain could be something that takes them to 500 meters. You know, it's all relative. But putting stuff on your bike and then going up a sustained, gradient that's going to put you into that max heart rate. I don't know. There's something about having to grit through it to sweat your way up to the top that just makes it feel so much more sweeter. You feel like you've achieved something. And I actually sometimes wonder if that's what we're addicted to, because maybe in our normal life, inverted brackets here, we don't have that same sense of achievement hit us in those moments.
For sure. And just on that point of some people, it might be the same as someone climbing a 500-meter pass. I think absolutely. I spent 4 years in Cornwall, which is the toe of the UK, if you're looking at it as a person.
Yeah.
On the very, very southwest. And there's no hill bigger than 400 meters, but it's probably the hardest place I've ever cycled my bike, just because there's so many rivers. It's just up, down, up, down. So I'd say that's harder than cycling through the Tian Shans, the Pamirs, and the Tibetan Plateau, just because it is so up and downy. So there's definitely no nowhere you can like not get an adventure. I think adventures are just found in the back in your backyard, and you can do that in the UK, in anywhere. And actually, some of the hardest riding is Europe, which I'm definitely finding at the moment with the wet and the cold and the increase in cost of living compared to Asia, where it sounds really well for me. Definitely, before I set off on this trip, it was menacing. It was quite terrifying, especially the likes of China, which you hear so much bad press about. But actually, when you're there, you realize, wow, this is just so natural. If I need to get a hotel, well, there's one for like £10 for an ensuite, for a huge double bed balcony, which is definitely within budget. Food, wow, it's £2 for a huge bowl of noodles. And people everywhere are stopping their car asking to help. And the hill is always gentle. It's not these crazy Italian 20% kickers, which seem to go on forever.
I didn't know that the roads in China, you're telling me like the climbs, they're nice and steady. You get into a nice rhythm on.
Oh,
I'm loving this.
Chinese civil engineers, they are incredible. There's never a road above 10%. I mean, these roads go up to 5,000 meters. You can be cycling uphill for 9 hours in a day, but they're always just a good gradient, which is it's so nice when you're carrying weight. Definitely not the lightest bike packer out there. Looking at your big panniers.
I'm just thinking, I want to compare mountain passes here, which seems ridiculous. And you've been to so many, but if I was to take you from that Chinese lovely engineered road of, 5 to 10% or whatever, what about places like maybe Georgia or Armenia in the Caucasus Mountains? Are they a bit steep and nasty?
I think the roads are actually quite nice, but when you choose the gravel tracks, you can just spend most of the day just pushing, and there's no limit of gradient. I remember a day where we just seemed to be riding from dawn until dusk with a Belgian guy in Armenia, and we only did like 40k, but we just pushed our bikes just so much, and it's just so debilitating. Just when's it going to end? But then equally, I think the next day or even a week later, we were like, I reckon the best day in Armenia was that day when we did 40k.
Matt, I said this probably a couple of months ago on the pod. I back in Australia for the moment, and I took a couple of day mini, weekend, put some gear on my bike with my husband, went off into the Aussie high country in the Jagungal wilderness. We hadn't planned to do the route that we ended up doing, which meant we mentally hadn't prepped for the amount of hiker bike we had to do and just how slow it would be. And I think it took us like 6 hours or something to do 32 kilometres, of which most of it was walking. And I quickly learnt that what I had to walk up, I would end up walking down because it was that steep and there were river crossings. And I remember going, this is a one and done. Never, ever, ever am I ever doing it again. And in fact, I interviewed a guest, Juliana Fontana, who, hey, Juliana, you're a ledge. She had done that route a few weeks before, and we both bonded over the hardness of the route. But she'd had an extra couple of weeks to have the rose-tinted glasses on than I had. I literally spoke to her the day that I got back. And I remember then I had a moment, I'm like, never doing that again. Tick that off my list. And then 8 days later, I'm like, I can't wait to go back. And I went there at Christmas. So there you go. It does happen, doesn't it?
Absolutely. It's definitely type 2 fun. And you look back and you forget all the hardness and all the hard bits. And it's the beauty and the remoteness and just the feeling of, I think it's what humans should be doing, really. It puts you into that almost survival mode. It primes your senses. You're just ready for anything. You come back and you feel amazing. You feel like you've been living like we should be.
There has to be a point too, Matt, where sometimes it gets that intense, you need to sort of like do a timeout and just actually say, I just need a little couple of chill days. Like, do you find that at all or not?
Yeah, for sure. But I think you almost get to the sense where you're not aware that you need it sometimes. And it's that forced break which just makes you rest. And you're like, wow. And in hindsight, that was so needed. Or even I can find myself getting burnt out in big days. And I'm sure a lot of cyclists can relate. I hope they can relate, where you've just been riding on the road for a few weeks and you find a cafe and you end up just like sitting there for like 2 hours and feeling so nourished, just sat inside, just outside the whatever weather it is. Just maybe it's just even just doing like stuff on your phone, texting people, and it just feels so good. But then equally you're there like, I've spent 2 hours on my phone. Damn, I need to get on the road. And you then chasing the clock to catch up on kilometers. Or equally, it's just, I spent 2 hours and I feel so good.
Gosh, I promise I'm not going to just keep mentioning previous guests, but just what you said triggered a memory in me, and it was when I had the absolute most awesome time and privilege to meet previous guest Claire White. I met her, she was coming through my part of France, she diverted to come, and I hosted her for a few days. But I remember we'd camped together in a welcome to my garden in France, and then we had like the most chill, laziest of mornings. Well, I say that, like, I learnt that Claire, having already biked from Mongolia and previously, like, thousands of kilometres before that, she can pack up really quick and I can't. My faff time in the morning was a lot longer, but we went somewhere and we had like a real chill, coffee, and, we're in France, so of course we went to a bakery, a boulangerie, and we're having, pastries for breakfast. No shame. And then we had a mountain pass to climb to get to where my area of where my house was. And it was like, 9:30 or something. We took some photos. There was another bike traveller who came. We chit-chatted for a bit. And then we saw like this cafe with a cool dog. Claire's the dog whisperer. She's like, oh, can we stop here? And I'm like, yeah, of course. And we're having a coffee. And she goes, do you mind if we have another one? I'm like, of course we can have another one. And it was that idea of just taking time out. Whereas otherwise you could be in your head and just going, no, it's going to be a hot day today. We should get up and over this mountain pass and push on. And we were already late. So it's that what you're talking about. Like, you can have that,
For sure.
those chill moments which feel great. And then sometimes there can be the voice in your head, which is like, whoa, we need to be shifting on here. What are we doing?
For sure. No, Claire comes across as an absolute legend.
Did you meet her at all on your travels?
I've not met her. I sent her a few messages when I was entering into Mongolia asking what route she kind of took. Some of that single track looks incredible. Some of the remoteness. But she's got, some amazing stories. And it's even more incredible doing it as a solo woman and the fears you have to have, which you don't even consider as a guy a lot of the time, which is really eye-opening, having friends and meeting women on the way who've really actually said stuff which I've been like, wow, like, I'm so privileged I've not even thought of that.
Yeah, it's like a blind spot that you don't know that you've got. The other sort of considerations that we take in to push through to do what we do.
Absolutely. But in that sense, I think so many people fear or look at the likes of bikepacking across the world as this crazy endurance feat. But actually, like you said with Claire, stopping for a coffee, or me just like spending a few hours in this police station this morning where the police cops have come and given me a cappuccino, croissant, cake. Actually, it's not intense when you break it down, and it's okay just to stop. You're not in this race. And I think people fear, I couldn't cross countries because I couldn't keep cycling every day. But very much just listen to your body. You can have days where you cycle 40k, you can have days where you cycle 140k, and it's whatever's right for you, whatever you want to do. Obviously there is a time limit for some people. The longer you go for, the more flexibility you have.
And I think that's something that being on the road has taught you, obviously, as well.
For sure. Bella, before I left for this trip, I think the Whitleys, our family definitely have this idea with other family friends and our friends that we just can't sit still and we can't chill. We always have to be doing something. And so cycling from Asia to the UK has, I think for a lot of people, it's like, whoa, that's so like unchill. But actually, it's probably made me the most chill I've ever been in my life. And I'm hoping in normal life I can grab bits of this and take it and then apply it into my normal life when I eventually have to settle down back in the UK. Or hopefully I won't.
You know what? We've jumped straight into the storytelling, which is awesome, and the lessons learned and sort of little snippets of what you've been and experienced. But I've got to wind you back, Matt, and say, how on earth did this all start? I got a hint of it when I first started following you, because I think I'd seen a post, it might have even been a recreation photo or something, that told me that your parents had actually done a bike tour 26 years ago. And so I thought, okay, well, he's obviously grown up with parents who've travelled in this way. He's probably heard their stories a little bit, maybe a bit like Jamie Hargreaves with his dad Phil, who, shares travel stories, and his mum Ali, who shared stories and inspired him and his brother Ollie to do stuff. And I thought, oh, okay. But looking then further into what you did, I noticed, you love the outdoors. That came across clearly when I was researching about you. I'd seen that, I think it was during COVID times, you somehow found yourself, sailing across the Atlantic on a yacht from, I think, was it Suriname to, I'm trying to think, Grenadine?
Yeah.
That's an outside the box type of an adventure. It's not a bus tour. You camped in snow season in the Alps. Obviously, a bit of a snowboard or ski addict, one or the other. So there's obviously this thing, but this podcast normalises huge tours that aren't normal. UK, Vietnam to the UK, not normal. You know, like, how did you get this idea?
Yeah, for sure. I think I've been so lucky to grow up in such a lovely, warm family. Grew up in South Manchester in the north of the UK. So actually, it's really amazingly located. It's like an hour and a bit to North Wales, to the Peak District, to the Lake District. So it's actually really accessible to get to the outdoors, which is a huge game changer. And a lot of people don't have that privilege or opportunity. So very lucky in that sense. And my parents were always, like you say, they've always been outdoorsy types. When they were in my age, they hit these big crazy adventures. Mum solo traveled through China, Pakistan, along the border of Afghanistan. And so I guess I've grown up with these stories, and then I guess their parents as well equally did crazy stuff. My granddad drove a Jeep or a Land Rover back from Kenya across the Sahara to the UK. Mum was born in New Zealand. My uncle was born in Fiji. So they were traveling as they were kind of growing up. So I guess you kind of normalize it. On the other side, my grandparents, they lived in Iran. So my dad grew up in Iran for a few years, which I think sounds crazy now. I guess before the Iranian Revolution, it was a bit more stable and definitely a safer place. My aunties lived in Kyrgyzstan. In family gatherings, you hear all this, and as a little kid, it's like, wow, well, obviously I'm going to do that when I'm older. And she's probably the best person you could meet as a bike packer. She's so welcoming and so lovely.
I want to have him on the pod, by the way. I need to have the other Whitleys on, because what an amazing adventure family. The stories.
They're definitely more organised than me. And I've spoken to Dad about it, and he's definitely keen. He's there like, well, what would I say? I can't remember my stories from 26 years ago.
I have ways to pull them out. Don't worry, Mr. Whitley.
Absolutely. But yeah, I guess there's always been that sense of adventure. Even within our family WhatsApp group, there's always that kind of messages of, oh, I don't know, it's not quite boasting, but it's always like, how can I just say I'm doing something more intense than I was 10 minutes ago? So I think yesterday, Mum was like, oh, I slept in a triple bunk. You'd be proud of me, guys. And so there's definitely always been that competition element, which is very different to, I've got a friend out with me at the moment, and she was saying she, a few weeks ago, had to knock on this house because there was floods in Wales, and she knocked on the house just to ask to call her parents. And her parents got quite angry at her for calling, just for knocking on a house, and it's a stranger, you don't know who this person is. Whereas I think Mum and Dad have brought me up in a completely different way, in the sense of if you don't ask, you don't get. And just, yeah, the world is full of amazing people. Go out and just ask them. So I guess that's been normalized, and it's always been normalized to say, oh, like, I'm doing this, or I'm doing that. To Mum and Dad, and they've always been so supportive. So I'm so grateful for that. And I can't imagine I'd be doing what I'm doing without the support from Mum and Dad. Just being happy just for me to go and explore and not get caught in the rat race.
Yeah, and planting the seed of adventure.
Exactly. Yeah, I sometimes phone Dad and I'm like, oh, Dad, what am I doing? I've spent the past 5 weeks just on the saddle doing nothing but pedaling, staring at the road. People are just there getting their careers sorted, their lives in place on graduate programs, earning, and he's just always, oh, Matt, you're doing an amazing thing. I can't believe how amazing it is. And so I think having that reassurance is just really beautiful. That support, and knowing almost just, when I second guess myself, I've got my parents there saying like, wow, like, why didn't we do what you were doing when we were that age?
Well, I mean, I guess they did it in different forms.
Exactly. But I think it's just that kind of willingness to always want to do other things, which I think is really special. Yeah, the family's definitely intense. We definitely struggle to sit still compared to a lot of our friends, our family friends. So I think we have a bit of that reputation.
Yeah, I don't see you booking a flight to Benidorm to sit under an umbrella and have a different type of holiday.
Yeah, but I think it definitely took me a time to realize that. I think there's a lot of pressure as a young teenager or like a young adult in that 16-year-old bracket at school. I definitely really struggled to fit in and thought, oh, that's what everyone kind of wants to do. Maybe that is me. I do have to admit, I have been to Magaluf after school finished, which wasn't my brightest hours. I think we've been lucky. Like none of our holidays have ever been like sitting on the beach. We've always just driven bikes out to France or into the Alps and Austria and been mountain biking for 2 weeks. Going to the Lake District, going to Scotland or North Wales. So all our childhood trips have always been memorable in the best ways possible, and just being outside in the rain. Almost what I'd want my children to have. So,
do you think about that in moments now when you've been on the road? Like, that day in Tibet, riding through the snow, getting to the top, or actually, how about I rewind you just a month ago to being in Greece where it's -4 and snowy and bleak and really cold. Do you ever think about the childhood moments as being sort of like little prep for you being here? Or am I just, no, like surely I'm rose tinting that. Like surely it's just grim in the moment.
I think that was definitely, I'm sure it's a foundation. But I think actually with this trip now, because it's almost been a year, I can almost see something which has been harder in the past year. And it's like, oh, well, I've done that. I can do this.
Yeah.
It's weird. It's almost in my head. It's like, well, Greece can't be as hard as the Tibetan Plateau or the Tian Shan Mountains or the Pamir Highway. So just get on with it. So yeah, Europe's definitely taken me by surprise. But equally, I think there's always just been that part on the trip where you can look back and say, oh, I've done this, I'll be fine. Or I've done this, I can get on with this.
Listeners, when I head away from home on my own bike adventures, there are a few things I always take with me, and having a VPN has become non-negotiable. Remote work and bike travel are just a fact of life for me now, especially as I split my time between Australia and France. I've been using NordVPN for around 4 years now, and it means that I can get on with all the boring life admin that isn't going away just because I'm on my own bike adventure. I can use public Wi-Fi to do things like banking, logging on from cafes, campgrounds, hotels, train stations and airports. And I always know NordVPN have got my back, giving me peace of mind that my data is protected. I like that Nord's simple and fast to use. It works on all of my devices. To get the best discount off your own NordVPN plan, go to nordvpn.com/STR. Our link's going to give you 4 extra months on their 2-year plan, and there's no risk with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. The link's in the podcast episode description box. Support the brands that are supporting this podcast. Now back to the episode. There was a post that I saw that you had put up, and it was all about bikepacking tips. And it was a list of, I think, 11 things that you had discovered and learnt from this. And you've sort of talked a little bit about it already. Like one of your tips there was that the race or the road is long. In the end, it's only yourself. You're not competing with anyone. It's okay to take time or whatnot. But one of the points that you made in this was friends come and go. If you're setting off solo, prepare to ride mostly solo. So you have had these moments where friends of yours have come out. You also had time where your dad came out. I think you spent a good time with your dad in Kyrgyzstan and Kazakhstan, was it?
Yes.
And your sister came out in Kyrgyzstan. You had some great time there. I think you've had some time with your mum along the route somewhere.
No, I saw her in Greece for Christmas.
That's it. And you've also had some friends join you. You've got a friend who's joining you now. And then you've had the awesome thing where you've made friends on the road and some fast friendships have formed and you've shared a bit of the road. But you've also had the solo time there. How has it been to go from one to the other? Is that like another part of the bikepacking drug addiction where you have another different level of extremity? Like the joy of sharing a journey to then the solitude and maybe the peace and solitude of not having to share it with someone and having it to yourself? Like there's highs and lows with both of that?
I think the amazing thing with traveling is the people you meet along the route traveling. You see more inspirational people in like a week than you do in a year at home or in your normal life. Almost everyone you meet is doing this crazy thing. Like you were kind of saying about this podcast, it's almost normalized to be doing this crazy 20,000 kilometer trip. And you meet someone in Tajikistan, it's like, yeah, I've come from Mongolia, or yeah, I've come from Greece. And it all just is like, oh, cool. Well, that's normal because the past 20 people I've met have all cycled from Europe. And so you're in this whole bubble.
0.1%. You are the 0.1.
But you're meeting these so inspirational people and you're inspired by almost everyone. So almost everyone's a joy to cycle with, a joy to meet and have a conversation with. I find that a huge highlight, and definitely Dad found that. I think we were really lucky to be in Kyrgyzstan during the Silk Road mountain race.
Oh, mega time.
So many inspiring legends, like Lottie Schumacher.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just we met these guys from Germany, Michal and Christian, who did the Silk Road a few years ago, and they were just deciding to follow the similar route to the 2025 Silk Road race, but also add in about twice as much elevation.
Just for shits and giggles.
Yeah, and they were Dad and I think looking back would say they're semi-pro. They were just elite and so fast. These carbon hardtails, but they were just so down to earth and so inspiring and just so amazing to chat to. They did get us to hike up this 12K hiker bike, which seemed to go on forever. And I think Dad will never forget that moment.
So when I interview you, Mr. Whitley, I've got to ask you about the 12K hiker bike in Kyrgyzstan.
Exactly. I think that's the closest I've ever seen Dad, who is this like Hercules in strength character in my life. That's the closest I've seen him to breaking point. And it almost became a bit like a kid. He was just like, oh, it's just stupid. Oh, it's just cold. But that was amazing to me in the sense of like, wow, like he is at his element, but he is at his limit, but he's still here and he's doing it. So complete hats off to, almost, he probably won't like me saying that, but an almost 60-year-old man. So huge inspiration.
So there are moments where you do have people around you, but what about conversely, the moments where you don't? Well, most of the time you've not been with people, have you? You have had a lot of solo time on your ride too, haven't you?
Yeah, definitely. And I've definitely struggled with loneliness. Before I left, that was one of my biggest fears, loneliness. And I think actually now I'm in a state of having spent so much time by myself that I actually really quite enjoy my company. I think it's all about structure and it's all about adding the bits of things to look forward to. So I'll try and download a few podcasts, get a bit of politics in my ears, try and stay up to date on current affairs, stuff you struggle with on a day-to-day basis. If you're working a normal job, you almost can live this life of, oh, wow, what if I had a free day? What can I do? So you can dive into politics, have politics in your ears, listen to music. And you almost create a rhythm of just, oh, let's listen to a daily briefing, let's cycle up a hill. And I think definitely part of my enjoyment of being solo is the spontaneity of it. I have no one I have to think about, and equally I can be on the road going on the flat and say, oh, this is boring, I'm going to head into the mountains, and 5 minutes later I'm on the mountain road. And I've definitely realised mountains, wow, they are the pinnacle of cycling. Riding on the flat sounds really romantic and good on paper, but mountains any day of the week, just they add so much more spice.
Can I take you to mountains which I've only seen in images and videos and heard other guests talk about, and that is in the Karakoram, because holy smokes, those mountains just look absolutely spectacular. That whole valley there that you're riding through would make me feel smaller than the smallest ant. Like you've got 7,000 metre peaks around you there, don't you? That's crazy.
They are absolutely incredible. Hats off to these Chinese civil engineers again, because they built this road from the Khunjerab Pass joining China and Pakistan, highest pass in the world, or highest motorized pass in the world. You're just dropping down from, I think it's about 4.7, 4.8, all the way down to Gilgit, which is about 250k away, and it's just this slow descending downhill, surrounded by these mammoth mountains. You have to crank your head. You're literally getting neck pain cycling down this road just to look at the top of these mountains, and you're in this almost like this tunnel of mountains, which is, I've never seen anything like it, and it's definitely one of my highlights. And I think that's partly because you're entering from Pakistan, from China, so the culture is completely different. And it's amazing what a border can do. You're going from noodles and a lot of police presence to just like more dali, curry style food, like very friendly people who can speak English, because English is a national language, which was just made everything so much easier. And the mountains just like spike up out of nowhere, and you're in these grades, which I had to pinch myself the whole time I was in Pakistan. That I was actually there. That I was actually in this country, which I guess you hear so much about from expeditions, from the like climbing world, from everything. And it's like, wow, like I'm 100k away from K2. I'm like, whoa, no way, that's Rakapoti. It's amazing.
Yeah, I'm thinking of like, hiking films I've watched about K2 and that amazing valley. I think about the crazy roads that people are on in Jeeps or something to get to them. They're nuts. There was an awesome mountaineering documentary called Meru. I don't know if you've seen it before.
Yeah, it's with Jimmy Chin and Conrad Anker. Yeah.
One of my favourite documentaries.
After seeing Jimmy Chin and Conrad Anker, everyone falls in love with him. And Renan Ozturk, I think, is the other climber. Yeah, incredible stories. But that just, again, as this kid growing up in Manchester, you're there just like, I think I watched that when I was about 15, 16 or something, around that age. And you're there just like, wow, that's just so inaccessible. That's impossible. It can never be me. But these are absolute inspirations. And then you find yourself riding 20 kilometers away from these mountains, which they're climbing, which have never been climbed before. 6,000 meter mountains, which don't have names because there's just so many 6,000s around. It's incomprehensible. And even now, I'm just like, wow, did I really go there? Oh, an absolute dream, Bella.
I want to take you actually to a city in Pakistan, that's Peshawar, because, Maddie, you have to know your photography tells a million more stories than this podcast will ever tell. And listeners, do yourself a favour. I've got a link to Matt's Instagram in the podcast show notes. Give it a follow and scroll through and have a look at the images, because you're quite talented. Your travel photography is exceptional and you should know that. And the photos from that city were amazing, but the caption also told another element to it as well. Like it was an edgy place to be, wasn't it?
Yeah, no, thanks, Bella. That's really, really nice of you to say. And I've actually just picked up a camera on this trip. Never really taken photos before, and that's been an amazing thing with bikepacking. You have the time to explore all these different hobbies, which you always have wanted to pursue, but never really found the time. Unfortunately, bikepacking in Asia, you are always cycling through these amazing environments. But yeah, Peshawar, wow, just endless days of walking around the bazaar, getting lost, and just finding the most amazing food for 50 pence, or people offering you warm, like quetta chai, which is this milky tea with like a hint of cinnamon. It tastes like, it has like a thickness like custard. You cannot describe it. It makes you salivate so much that I think it dehydrates you more than you actually can consume. So you're just necking back these teas, and they cost 15, 20p.
The aroma is just like filtering through the street there too, no doubt.
Yeah, for sure. And I think food, definitely for bikepackers, is something which I've come to really appreciate, because you so much time cycling, you're off the bike, you want to eat, and you want to eat good food. So countries in Asia are just elite for that sense. And Peshawar especially just has amazing food and street food on every corner. But yeah, the people, again, are amazing. But Peshawar was my taste, where there was definitely a different world to the mountains of Gilgit and Baltistan in North Pakistan. It was a lot more intense. You'd almost have crowds of people around you sometimes, just because they're interested in this lanky foreigner with blonde hair and bags on his bicycle. And equally, it was probably one of the times I got most scared on this trip, where there's a lot of police presence. Peshawar is 30, 40 kilometers from the Afghan border. So there's a huge Pakistan police presence in this part of the world. They basically were tailing me about 200 kilometers north and saying, you can't cycle this bit, you need to get a police escort. So they put me in a van, took me to the center of Peshawar, and then they dropped me off at 1 a.m, but with no police escort. So I had to find a hotel at 1 a.m. in this huge city.
It's sort of madness, isn't it? Like, sorry, that whole scenario is madness. Now, firstly, I've heard from everyone I've interviewed, I haven't interviewed anyone yet who hasn't had dealings, like having to deal with the police escorts in Pakistan yet. The idea that they're escorting you and then at 1 a.m, it almost feels like they just want to go home now. So, okay, there you go. Someone else's problem, or?
It's crazy. And it's probably one of the most dangerous places they could drop me off, because I was dropped off in this dodgy bus stop. I get out of the bus and there's like 10 men like fiddling with my bags, and you've got your bike disassembled, the wheels are off, and it's like, whoa, trying to pick stuff together. You get your bike on and just head straight out. And it's just like, wow, like, yeah, you can instantly feel the warmth and the heat of this city, and almost like the stuffiness from just so many people living in close proximity. Super, super beautiful city.
Yeah, it's very populated.
It is. It's a huge city. Yeah, in the sense of European cities, it's big. It's massive. Maybe Chinese cities, it's not so big, but I think it's definitely in the millions.
Wow. Yeah.
In probably the 5-10 million bracket. So it's a big city, and I had, I think, about 9 kilometers to cycle to this hostel or hotel. And I was cycling under these overpasses at 1 a.m. with gangs of men with like guns. And it's the first time I'd really seen locals with guns who weren't police. Coming from the UK and Europe, I guess you never really see guns. Not like even the police don't carry guns in the UK. And there was just these, gangs of young men, and it terrified me. They're shouting at me, they're shouting at this kind of foreigner, and you're just in your head like the what if here is terrible. There's a huge issue of capability of going wrong. And I realised the day after that 8 policemen were shot that night.
Whoa.
And killed. Yeah, there was like a few bombs or something. There was eight policemen killed in Peshawar that night. And so that definitely brought it home, the fear of how close you are to the what if at times.
And also the juxtaposition as well of, on one hand, being in this amazing city, thinking of describing the aromas from the street, the food, the chai, the vibrance, the people, it's densely populated, there's a stuffiness to it, you're not in the mountains anymore, to all of a sudden the raw edginess of reality of, there's also, it's not quite as safe as well sometimes. Like there is, like you're mostly safe, but there could be moments and you might be in that moment and you don't know. Like there's that sort of edginess.
And it was like pretty silly of me to cycle through at 1 a.m. The next day I asked these locals about the places I'd cycle through, and they said, we wouldn't even go there in a day. So obviously that was a mistake of mine, but equally, not great from the police. Taking you from this mountain village, putting you in a police van, and then you get out and you're in a huge city. So that was definitely interesting. But I think Pakistan's definitely tainted in that image of being quite negative and violent. But I think we have to remember that is the 0.01%. And cycling through dodgy parts of London or Paris at 1 a.m. is probably just as dangerous. 99.9% of people in Pakistan, in South Asia, they are just the friendliest, most welcoming, amazing people you've ever met. You see more smiles in 5 minutes in Pakistan than you see in like probably 2 years in London. Everyone's just beaming. It's such an amazing place. So I don't mean to do it negative by talking about fear. I think there is just this. I think Pakistan's probably my favorite country I've ever been to, just because of the scenery, like we were talking about, the mountains, the people, so friendly, so welcoming, so willing to help, and equally the food and the culture and these bustling cities. Bella, you have to get yourself there. It's incredible.
Like I said, I've imagined myself in that valley in so many, I seek these sort of movies out for that. I'm not a mountaineer, I'm not a rock climber even, but I love that sort of scene and stuff as well. I don't know, there's like a sense of wanting to just put myself magically in that place, just to feel it for myself. We were talking about photography there, Matt. And something I know with photography is a photo really flattens an image. Like you cannot get the depth perception from being somewhere in real life. You can sort of give hints of it away and there's shadows and textures and stuff. But to be a person witnessing those landscapes, like that must have felt like you were just giving yourself so many gifts each day. Just, and that's just in that part of your trip. I mean, let's not talk about, to the Tibetan Plateau or the Harjang Loop, or maybe not the Gobi Desert. Like that might not be the most invigorating place, but you've had so many of those high places. I mean, let's actually go to the Gobi Desert. You do sometimes have to go to the not so awesome places to appreciate the Karakoram, for example.
Sure. And I'll just leave the Karakoram in people's minds and listeners' minds of just this road which winds through 7,000 meter mountains, where you can walk for 20 minutes off the road and be next to the 7th biggest glacier in the world. It is spectacular, and I wish I could just bring all my friends and family there. It's just that kind of place where it's like, wow, all the people I love in this world, I just want them to see this once in their life. But talking about the Gobi, I think the Chinese desert I did was in between the Gobi and the Talamakaman. So I still struggle to say what desert it was, but it was a lot of sand, too much sand for my liking.
Hot?
It wasn't so much the heat, which was the problem, although in Turpan, which is there's a Turpan depression, so it's almost minus 70 meters below sea level. That was really hot. That's the hottest part of China, and that was about 40 degrees. But it's a dry heat.
Dry heat can be intense in different ways, but it's not as energy sapping as humidity and heat. As an Aussie, I've felt dry heat many times, whereas in the Harjang Loop, or maybe not the Harjang Loop, but in other parts of Vietnam, for example, you might be 38 degrees and 90% humidity.
Exactly, and I think that's definitely much more suffocating. But I think the issue with the Gobi was just the wind, and the Chinese desert will always just I don't know. Maybe I didn't have the most positive experience. It was nice in some sense. I think it sounds quite romantic of cycling through a desert, cycling, being self-sufficient, carrying. I think I had 11 liters of water with me at one point, but just a headwind, man, Bella, it just destroys you. And I think headwinds, I think I'm so mentally weak with. The harder you push, the harder it gets. So why should I push and cycle into this headwind harder? I'll just sit really slowly. And then you're like, wow, I'm only going at 4 kilometers an hour. Damn. I really struggle with headwinds.
I've said this a few times. They're always so loud as well. Like you can't even hear. You're fighting against it. You can't hear. You're bracing for the next gust. You're checking to see, is the road about to turn 90 degrees and that horrendous headwind's going to be a crosswind that could throw me off the road? Like it's that sort of a mind game.
Yeah, I think one of the hardest things of just the desert is just endless roads which you can't see the end of, and it's just you're slowly plowing into this headwind, and you can just see this endless horizon of this like road just continuing and continuing and continuing. I was really grateful I was in the Chinese desert. I think the Mongolian desert sounds even more intense, stronger winds. Of course, I've got the beauty of China with just trucks passing every half an hour to an hour. So I never felt unsafe. I never felt scared of running out of water, particularly, or if I had this crazy mechanical, I felt that, oh, I could just, any truck driver, I feel seeing yourself in the desert is going to pull over and help this strange foreigner in their lands.
Did you have people like pulling over and giving you water and stuff? I know interviewing people who ride through the outback in Australia, for example, and again, huge distances between any type of services or, look of civilization there. A lot of people will talk about a truckie or, we call them a grey nomad, people who are retired with their caravans or something, caravanning around Australia, they're always stopping to give water. Like, was that the case have you found that in places as well? Like people are stopping to...
Yeah, for sure. Oh, Bella, the Chinese people are amazing. They are so hospitable and so welcoming. And yeah, I think I got down to about half a liter left of water, and it wasn't too bad. I had 50k until a petrol station, so I wasn't stressing. But equally, you're in the desert, and I guess it's always better to have more than less. And then just as I'm like, oh damn, I should have maybe carried my water, these two trucks pull up, and they just give me like 2 liters of water. They give me all these plastic wrapped Chinese artificial snacks, which is probably not the best thing for your insides. But at the moment, it's like, oh, like you
Give me
just
salt.
gobble it
Yeah,
down.
exactly.
The Chinese people, well, M. Holber absolutely painted the perfect image, and I think because she speaks Mandarin, she has this whole elite level of Chinese hospitality. But Chinese hospitality, wow, it's unbeaten, Bella. It's amazing.
I had the privilege of spending some time with Em just recently and super stoked to have her as one of our panelists during a couple of live shows in Melbourne. And yeah, she was talking about, as an Australian growing up hearing about China, you've sort of got this image in your head of it's very industrial, it's all factories, it's grey, you'll never see the sky, it's so polluted, everyone's unhelpful and not friendly, and you go there and it's actually very different. That's sort of what you're telling me about it as well.
For sure. In China, I was invited to Tajik weddings with Tajiks who were living in China. I'd be in these Chinese restaurants, be like, oh, maybe I'll order another bowl of noodles. Oh, it's going to be like £4 or £5. Crikey, what am I going to do for dinner? And then there'll be someone who comes in and just pays your order, or people who pay for hotels for you. And it's like, no, 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 please, I'm happy to camp. Hospitality was incredible. People stopping on the side of the road to give you watermelon, inviting you like to eat and drink with you. Oh, like they're just so friendly people. And I think we have we have to meet like the Western media providing us with what the government's doing and not necessarily what the people are doing and what the people are like. I think it's very much encompassed in this is the Chinese government, so the Chinese people must be the same. Whereas, and I think probably similar with Russia, actually, many Russian people and a lot of Russian people I met in Central Asia are so flipping amazing and friendly and just have like a real sense of adventure, which I think would find a lot less within in Europeans and people from England. And they're really inspiring, but we don't hear of any of this with our media, which is, it definitely has painted a bit of a broken image in my mind of how the media portrays a lot of these countries. And of course, there's issues with the government, there's issues with what these countries are doing, but that doesn't mean that it's full of millions of amazing souls who are civilians and who can't help who their government and their country is.
Yeah, and that hospitality just kept shining through. I actually wanted to, I know we've spoken about Tibet already with that magic day that you had, but I want to take you back to Tibet. There's two stories I want to hear more about. The first one involves lunch with a Tibetan monk. The best adventure bike is the one that you already have. Now, while I'm here in Australia, mine is a dual suspension mountain bike and it has no fork mounts. I used to wonder how I would go carrying anything up the front of that bike without risking damaging the fork and the front suspension. That's where Old Man Mountain's axle pack comes in. It has fixed that problem instantly for me. The axle pack comes with an Old Man Mountain axle that you put onto your bike, and that means the load transfers through that axle and not your fork. This means I can add cargo cages and bags and pack extra water, layers, overnight gear, food, the lot, and take my bike off-road on the roughest of tracks and know it's not going to be damaged from that load at all. It has helped turn my dual suspension mountain bike, which I've already owned, into the perfect adventure bike for the routes that I am riding. Go to oldmanmountain.com to find out more. Support the brands that support this podcast. Now back to the episode. Some guy, a monk, randomly living in like a cave or something at 4,500 meters or whatever. Tell me about that, because I saw it on your feed and I saw the photos. He's in a cave. He's got like a little fireplace sort of system there to keep himself warm. He's literally on the plateau somewhere. Like, what's it like to come across stuff like that?
Yeah, that was amazing. That was actually all spontaneous. My wheel broke.
Well, actually, that's the second part of the story. That's what I want to talk about as well. So this is very serendipitous. Go on.
Yeah. So all kind of linked. So I had this wheel which the spoke started pulling through the rim, and I had like 12 cracks along the rim, and I had 250k of gravel in front of me, of high altitude, like Tibetan gravel, which I wasn't so optimistic about bringing the wheel along and it breaking halfway. So I got to this little town and I was just like, put my head in my hands, like, what can I do? And then obviously China has Taobao, which is almost Chinese Amazon, and it works all over China. So I logged on, had these locals from a restaurant help me. I actually ordered it to the restaurant. And so I ordered this $40 Chinese wheel, and in 3 days it was just in this restaurant. But obviously I think it was 5 days they estimated delivery.
It is nuts to think that that's sort of the world we live in now. But yeah.
Absolutely wild. But in that moment, it was what I needed. It was Temu saved the day effectively. But I had this 5 days estimated for delivery to kill. So I just took like my sleeping bag and a bivvy, hitchhiked around a part of the plateau I wasn't going to, further east, because I was basically hugging the Tibetan Autonomous Region, which you can't enter. I was hugging that border. So I was in Sichuan, but across the river was Tibet. It's all old Tibet. Basically, China's slowly crunched Tibet into a smaller place. So you're on this high plateau still. I was hitchhiking around, and then I just had my running shoes on. So I go and try and find a town or a cool mountain and just run up to it. And there's this lake I'd penciled in, which looks really cool around these frozen 5,000 meter mountains. So I set off, ran up there, and there was no one the whole way. You'd see these yak skulls, and that was about it. And then you get there, and there was just this building, and there's smoke coming out of it. I say building, it was like a dry stone wall wedged underneath this boulder, smoke coming out of it. And this monk emerges in sunglasses and doesn't speak a word of English. Obviously, go to Google Translate. But we're just having this really open chat. And it's one of the first times in China I was speaking to someone through Google Translate who was open about just like not liking the Chinese government, being quite easy to speak about that. And I guess it was because we were in the middle of nowhere. I think it was 12k from the closest gravel track, which I'd hitchhiked along. And there was a monastery down in the town by this gravel track. So for him, I guess it was a day's walk in, but he was just living there, and he had this little fire. He burnt yak poo. But to get there, I mean, I was walking through like 1.5 foot, 2 foot of snow.
Yeah.
To try and get to this lake. And he walked through there, walked down there. He had this huge pile of twigs, which I think other monks had helped carry up in summer. So he has this huge stores, but he's living very simply.
Like a hermit in a way.
Yeah, he was delighted to like meet me, really. And we went down, we broke the ice to fill up the kettle with some water from the lake, put it on, burning this huge pile of yak poo. And he was there just like asking for me to show him photos of the Dalai Lama and speak about the Dalai Lama, because I think they can't even see photos of the Dalai Lama. And he was just saying, yeah, how anti the government he was, which was really refreshing to hear.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's all through Google Translate, but also just a really special time just in this cave with this monk who had so much like swagger about him, almost like good energy. And he was there just saying, "Oh, Tibetans are better than Chinese. We're stronger. We're tougher people," and all this stuff, which is like obviously what he believed. And it was just really interesting. He was there like, "Oh, the Chinese are only stronger than us because they come here with guns." And obviously, the Chinese government does so well at hiding all this stuff. It's definitely an eye opener, but equally, just a very special time. Just the whole concept of being surrounded by this amphitheater of white mountains, breaking the ice of the lake to fill your kettle, whilst we're in this room, which is where he's sleeping, where he's cooking, where he's praying. Really special.
I wanted to speak about it because it's one of those stories that you couldn't write about before. Like maybe you could conceive that there's a monk living like a hermit somewhere on the Tibetan Plateau, but that you're going to ride your bike and then hike on a trail because your bike's not working, and to find him and then to get water from a frozen lake and have a tea with him and hear stories. Like that sort of, telling stories in generations to come, that's the sort of stuff that you'll folklore-y stuff. Carrying the Whitley tradition of extreme things and different things in there. You can always one-up them now, Matt, with, but did you speak to a Tibetan monk living like a hermit on the plateau?
I think Mum will have countless stories.
When I get them on the pod, I'll hear them. Back to your wheel braking, and you got this new wheel, but it didn't really fix the problem fully, did it? Like, it gave you a wheel that you could ride on, but it meant that you didn't have a brake, right?
Yes, exactly. So the wheel arrived, I put it on, and then realised that my old wheel had the disc, which you have to tighten using like a cassette tool. I don't know the tool, but yeah, almost like it slots on and off instead of like tightening it with 6 bolts. So then I kind of not wanting to wait another 5 days just for a disc rotor, and thought, maybe there's somewhere in the next town I can just buy like a disc rotor from a kid's bike type thing. And so I set off on this 250k of gravel, followed by a few hundred other k of Tibetan like loveliness, with only a front brake. And my brakes died going down this hill, which is quite terrifying.
Oh, it's my fear personified. Wow. Yeah.
It's definitely a fear, and it's just that whole fear of it. You're accelerating down the hill with your brakes fully on, just like, oh my god.
Did you launch yourself off the bike? Like, what did you do? Like, are you dragging your feet on the ground? I need to know.
Yeah, well, fortunately, I wasn't going too fast because of that, and obviously I'm on gravel, so you can't go too fast when you're carrying weight. So I wasn't going too fast, so I kind of steered into the bush, grabbed out, like I was dragging my feet, jumped off all at kind of one very intuitive movement. It didn't feel too terrifying, to be honest, Bella.
Yeah, okay. You could make the story sound a lot scarier, Matt, if you wanted to. So I like that you don't embellish. That's very good. No embellishment here.
No.
Were you able to make it eventually to somewhere where you could buy a disc rotor? Like, how did you resolve all that?
And then I think you let it cool down. Wasn't doing the best technique of putting water on the brake pads. Yeah, let it cool. You slowly get a bit of pump back and then carry on. But obviously, you're traveling slowly, and it just actually really worked into my way of travel. I'm really under the idea and persona that you can't travel too slow. You can only travel too quickly through somewhere. So looking back now, I'm like, wow, I definitely travel through Tibet too fast. But in the moment, you're there like, oh, well, I have to stop every 5 minutes to get off the bike. But it gave me the opportunity actually just to appreciate the surroundings. You're in somewhere which is so unfathomably beautiful compared to Manchester and the UK, that it's like, wow, actually, is it a problem I have to stop every 5 minutes? No.
Wow, what a great lens of perspective you've given yourself there, to think that as well in the moment, because you could quickly and easily flip it to being frustrated and maybe even defeated sometimes. I'm in the middle of the nowhere, I've got this mechanical that's going to stop me. Like, that could be something, and they're the sort of thoughts that people think about before they set off, which stop them from setting off too. What happens if I get in the middle of nowhere and I have this bad mechanical? And you're telling me about this alternate actual reality of, well, you can have this bad mechanical, which means you don't have brakes in Tibet of all places, and actually it's okay because you just go slower and you enjoy the view. Do you think that mindset's something that you had, Matt, before this trip, or do you think it's something that developed?
I think I was quite scared. So I'd never been to Asia before this trip, and I flew into Vietnam. I'd never been on a solo bikepacking trip before, so I definitely had a lot of unknowns. I think I flew into Vietnam quite scared of Vietnam. It's a developing country. It's not got the same wealth as Europe and the UK, and it's just playing on my mind. Oh, my bike's going to get robbed. I think that was my biggest fear to start. But you quickly realise, like, wow, people in this part of the world are so beautiful, so well natured, so just interested in you and inquisitive. And to them, a bike is no more valuable than just almost a kid's. People don't ride bikes for fun. They don't really have a value, I don't think, of what a good bike is. It's just a bike to get to the shops.
It's a utility. It's not a pleasure thing. Yep.
Exactly. It's not a motorbike, so it's not as valuable as a motorbike. And I think I started realizing I still have that mindset now in Italy, and I definitely need to sharpen my sense of just leaving my bike somewhere, because in Asia it's so safe. People are just, oh, it's fine. Like, and I remember in China I left my bike with my passport on it, in the top tube bag for 2.5 hours, because these locals took me to see some sand dunes, and I thought it was 5 minutes away, and it's an hour in the car. I'm like, I probably need to get back to my bike. I did just leave it just on the side of the road, and you get back and everything's fine. And yeah, like it's a completely different perspective, but
Yeah,
fortunately
it's a hard
it's not an
adjustment.
ultra valuable bike.
Yeah, it's a hard adjustment to make, though. I remember when I met Jamie and Malachi in person in Sydney when they both arrived there from the UK, so sort of an inverse, in a way, parts of your trip. And they told me there was only getting to Australia that they've had to remember to lock their bike up and be more secure with their bike again. So it's the exact same sort of thing. Sad, isn't it?
It is really sad. It's really sad. It's the wealthy countries which you have to have this fear about you. I think we're almost too engrossed in this capitalist system, let's say, and we're just bothered about money and making money. Everything's more expensive, so some people may need to rob bikes to actually stay alive and put food on their table for the children. I'm not sure in a perfect world anyone would be robbing bikes, but let's not go down that rabbit hole.
Let's not talk about rabbit holes. Let's talk about baby goslings. I really want to share the baby gosling story because we have to share happy moments on this podcast. That story is wild. So I want to tell the listeners what I'm talking about.
Yeah, that was really special. That was in South China, going through Tiger Leaping Gorge, which is just amazing gorge, and then you juts up from about 1,000 meters this road to about 3,800 meters, and about 1,000 meters just before the gorge, there's this restaurant. Rick and I, this Dutch guy I was with, stopped and had some noodles for breakfast. And there was this cardboard box of some baby goslings. We thought they were ducklings. Through Google Translate, they said, "Oh yeah, they'll be killed and made into food for the menu." And it's just like, no, I can't let these goslings go. So I just offered to buy two of them, not really thinking. They gave me this box. I put some straw in. They gave me loads of feed, and I bought these two goslings, and then I didn't really consider that we were climbing to 3,800 meters and it'd be almost 0 degrees. So I had these baby goslings who were just in the box in the back of my bike. Every time we'd stop, I'd take them out, give them feed, let them eat the grass. But I think they just started shivering, and I was like, oh no, this is terrible. And this was at probably 3,500 meters, so it was cold. So I was going into these cafes and these restaurants, basically asking for just bottles of hot water, just to put them around these little goslings, which at the time I thought were ducklings, and it would basically just keep them warm, because it was freezing up there, and so we'd be in probably about 0 degrees, I guess. Those yaks around, so that gives you a bit of an idea of the temperature. And the descent, I was terrified because they were just bungeed on in this cardboard box. I was terrified I was just going to lose them. And then I realized what I was doing was probably really irresponsible and not what these ducks should really be doing. And I still thought they were ducklings until I posted a picture on my story, and a friend said, "Oh, I think these might be goslings." We had some goslings which grew up into geese really quickly. That idea kind of threw me, because I was like, "Oh, I'll carry these ducklings with me the whole way through China. It'll be great. I'll have these pals." And then I'm thinking of two massive Canadian geese hanging off the back of my bike. And to be honest, I was scared they probably wouldn't survive. We were in this town of Shangri-La, which is about 3,500 meters. It's really cold up there. And we were in this coffee shop And I took the ducks out, put them in the coffee shop, and the owner kind of fell in love with them and was like taking photos of them, really excited. So I just said, "Oh, well, do you want them? Can I give you these for a free coffee?" And
Sorry,
then
hang
I
on.
was like,
I
"Actually,
love the tradesman here. The bartering comes in. These are a burden, but hey, maybe I can get a coffee out of it too.
got even better." And then I was like, "Actually, like, do you have anywhere I can have a quick shower?" So I managed to get a coffee and a shower out of it for two goslings. And then I got her WhatsApp because they'd almost become my little kids.
You gave them names, didn't you? I'm trying to think of what you called them. Was it Quackers and Cheese or something?
Quackers and cheese, or like salt and pepper. But I think quackers and cheese was I couldn't tell them apart. But it was the first time in my life I'd had responsibility where I was looking after someone. Yeah, these things which without me I guess wouldn't stay alive. And so I felt very. It was amazing how much stress it puts on you, and how relieved I was to kind of get hand them off, which just painted a little picture of what mothers and fathers have to go through for years.
Can we all now, as listeners, and me as the host, just believe that they've survived? They've just found their forever home, and they didn't.
Yeah, so I was WhatsApping this cafe owner who said she took them to a lake, and there was lots of wildlife there and let them stay, and lots of bird life. So they should be safe. Although I did try to take them to a holy lake, and I took them out, almost put them near the water, and these big geese came straight over and started attacking them. And we had to run for our lives. Well, they had to run for their lives whilst I
No,
was.
no, 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 no. But this other lake, this Shangri-La lake, they're living. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Exactly. It was a bird sanctuary, living their best life.
They weren't in noodle soup. Let's put it that way. So they've made
No, exactly.
the stories we've told here today. It's just wild. You've had a wild trip. You had an awesome time with your sister in Kyrgyzstan, actually. She came out to meet you. You were both going to ride the Tian Shan Traverse. She, I think, had an injury, and that meant that couldn't happen. But then you just pivoted and just went on a different side quest.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was a bit of a blessing in disguise, really, because I'd been on the bike for about 6 months by then. I met her in Bishkek. Yeah, we were going to ride the Tian Shan Traverse, which I'm sure many of the listeners know. It's this just beautiful, epic mountain bike ride on bikepacking.com, which I'd 100% recommend Arabelle Pass. So we did Arabelle Pass together, absolutely stunning. And then, yeah, she had this pre-existing knee injury from climbing, which popped up. So we just decided to just go like walking and horse riding, which was so nice. And I remember getting on the bike after spending about 2 weeks off the bike and just being like, why am I cycling? Every day is so boring. And I have that almost every time I get off the bike for a week. It takes me about a week to get back into, really, am I cycling just all day, every day? I can't yeah, it's definitely quite a simple way of life, which I do love. But definitely when I'm exposed to other excitement, walking, I think walking definitely in the likes of Kyrgyzstan, you can really see a lot more, where you can see like even more beautiful places than you can necessarily carry a bike to.
Matt, I'm on board with that because I am a firm believer that it's where like the trail with the path or the track that you're riding on ends and the hiking trail starts is where the real magic starts as well. It's interesting though that when you do have time off the bike, you feel a bit jaded when you're back on it for a little period of time as well.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. I completely get that. I think the optimum is a bit of walking and a bit of riding. But I think that comes down to the whole point of why I'm cycling, and I've actually realised on this trip that I don't love the cycling part. I'm definitely much travelling by bike. I'd much rather take the harder path, more remote path, and ride 30k just to travel to this crazy village or get these crazy views compared to riding 100k on the nice flat. That's definitely been a change of perception. I definitely started the trip thinking, oh, I'm going to cycle every single kilometre. Like, oh, people who get buses, people who hitchhike, they're not doing a true like cross continent trip. But actually, I'm so much. Yeah, my perception now is so much more of, oh well, if I can hitchhike across this boring bit or on this motorway for 200 kilometers, I can add a whole other country and I can hit this mountain range and cycle around there and then hitchhike back compared to having 2 weeks just sat on the highway.
There is definitely two schools of thought there, isn't there? Because there is the cycling every single kilometre wagon, and then there is the choose your adventure. It's your adventure. Do what you do. who cares? Like, because ultimately, who does
For
care? Like,
sure,
I
for
don't know. I
sure.
mean, I guess there are people who do wear it as a badge of honour that they did ride 100% of the way. There's also people who hate going back on themselves. I know, like, just in the cycling world as well, there's people who hate routes that are just up and back and have to do like a circle or a route so they can't. And case in point, where I live, most of my most epic rides are out and backs because they take you right up to the top of the mountain and it's a one-way system in and out. So there's no choice, right?
For sure.
There's even though the difference in doing something in a different direction. Like, you get a different feel, it's a different view. It might be uphill, it might be downhill. You're looking at a different perspective. Like, but I can also understand that's me. Some people it does their head in, and we're all different, and no one's right or wrong, right?
Yeah, well, neither's right and wrong, but I completely, I think hats off to those people who do cycle every kilometre. Absolutely, it's absolutely amazing. But I think for me, yeah, as I said, it's almost more of a travel by bike, and the bike's the means of getting to these amazing places, and the means of traveling around these amazing places. So I think without my change in mindset, I'd never have gone to Pakistan and Afghanistan and explored the absolute wonders there because looking on the map, they're completely and unconventionally out of the way. And Mongolia again. So I almost with Mongolia, I hitchhiked to the border and hitchhiked up north to the Russian border, and then rode back down through to China. And I wouldn't have had time in my schedule, and it would to fit these countries in if I hadn't been like, oh, okay, well, I'll hitchhike this bit because this is a bit dull, etc., etc. And for me, I think that's really where I've grown as a person of wanting to just see these amazing places and explore these amazing places much more. Like I think we were talking about at the start, riding 20k over 100k, and it can almost feel more fulfilling to me.
Yeah, because of what you choose to experience instead, because you've slowed it down or you've diverted off or you've taken a more rugged route. I think I saw that when you were in Turkey and you were riding on the main road on the coast, and you were like, I could do this and be at home for Christmas, but what's the fun in that? And
Yeah,
there's also a point, Matt, with now, like, you're in Italy and you have just gone through really grim times with the weather, but also hitting Europe's left you feeling a bit jaded because maybe culturally it's not different enough as well, or there's just it's not as unknown. Maybe, I don't know if I'm wording it right. They're my words, not your feelings. And
absolutely, absolutely, Bella. Yeah, I've completely lost that. I think that idea of having your senses primed, ready for anything, adrenaline kind of a sky high, and the feeling of the unknown, ready to change your plans within 5 minutes because it all goes pear shaped, and just the difficulty of getting by using Google Translate, there being the language barrier, the culture barrier. I actually really thrive and love that. And since coming to Greece, it's felt, wow, this is so homely and normal and easy in a way, but equally, yeah, you can make it harder for yourself. You can go into the mountains, you can do different routes. But I realize so much for me on this trip is just experiencing these different cultures and these different experiences. And in a lot of ways, Europe's harder. It's a lot more expensive, so you don't have the security blanket of, oh, I can dive into a hotel tonight and it's €10. So I've decided, like, now in Sicily, I'm going to be getting the ferry in a few days to Tunisia and hopefully doing Tunisia, Algeria, and trying to work my way to Morocco. The border entries still all seem really hard, so we'll see how it goes.
take it week by week or whatever you need to do. But again, you're diverting off the conventional, not straight line, but the conventional, more direct route back to home in the UK.
Yeah, so yeah, I've obviously got a budget. I've got about £6,000 I've had for this year for travel, and I've spent over 5,000. So I'm nearing that zone where I need to start being careful. But I think my money will go a lot further in Africa as well. And I'd almost rather, I'm at the headspace now of, well, maybe I can spend the next 2 months in Africa, near the end of my money, get a ferry to Spain or Portugal, and actually end in Portugal or Spain, because France and the UK are always going to be there, and they're less. Obviously, I'd meet great people like you, Bella, in the Pyrenees, which would be very exciting.
Oh, yeah, but whether you meet me at the end of this year or you meet me next year, doesn't matter. I might meet you in Manchester.
Yes, exactly. Well, you're always welcome. They're just, yeah, I guess they're less, it's further from the normal, further from what I'm used to. And I guess that's what I'm really excited about.
Yeah, and that's what you're seeking out.
Yeah, I was getting a little bit down cycling through Greece. It's just like, wow, I've got this the whole way home. Should I actually just zoom through and just actually start working? Because I feel a sense of like adventure's almost over. Toying with the idea of going to Africa, it's like wow, it's just made me excited to get on the bike and put go through Europe just so I know I'm kind of heading to Africa and getting that sense of adventure again. But like equally, Europe's been amazing. The Italians are incredible. Like I said, I'm in this police station at the moment. They've given me a cappuccino. They've given me croissants, cake.
They're giving you the Wi-Fi now. Like, yeah.
Yeah, even the last 24 hours, I got a mechanic. I asked if they knew anywhere for shelter because there's been a bit of a storm on the island. He just said, "Oh, no worries. Get in my car. I can take you to somewhere sheltered." And it was his family almost holiday home where there was a big awning where we managed to put the tent under. Said, "Help yourself." So gave us the keys and then left. So complete beautiful souls, and people are so friendly, even in Europe, which is amazing. It's amazing to see that. Yeah, I think for me now though, it's just we're really missing. I guess I'm missing the intensity. Something about Afghanistan, which I'm sure we'll speak a little bit about, but it was so intense, so almost hard in the moment. But looking back now, it's like some of my fondest memories, and I loved it so much. Just that feeling of, I think it's the most alive I've ever felt, but it's an intensity you can't describe to anyone who's not been in environments like that.
It's interesting, Matt, because it feels like just recently, and I guess it's a case that it's a country that really has only just started opening up for tourism, and I interview the 0.1% of people who are travelling through. But I have recently interviewed a few guests who've travelled there, and everyone has laid claim to, well, a few things. Firstly, apparently it's got some of the best bread in the world. I've learnt that, and the food there is amazing.
And ice cream, Bella. Oh my gosh, the ice cream.
Oh,
wow.
I didn't know there was ice cream as well. Wow. The people are welcoming, but the intensity is next level, and being able to navigate through that intensity is really, really hard to sustain. The attention, the curiosity, and it might not be with malice, but there's also, I interviewed Chow. I don't know.
Yes,
you must be messaging
Belgium,
me.
I think.
Because you would have taken a lot of the similar routes. I don't even know if you maybe met on the way. But when he was there with a friend, and he said it was so intense, like you'd stop and there'd be 50 people around you. He was lucky to be there with someone because they could sort of take it in turns on who did the sort of speaking with the crowd and who could just zone out. So Fergal Guian says, it was an amazing country, but he left with more questions than answers. It was an intensity for him as well, which he loved, but was also quite edgy. Tomas McIntyre says the same. And then there's the extra added element of it, a country where you're seeing 50% of the population. So there's that element of it as well, which must be hard. And to be fair, a lot of people have also called out the fact that women in Afghanistan are not seen, but it's not that you get to Afghanistan and that's where that happens. That actually happens a lot earlier on in other countries as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, there is an intensity to it, isn't there?
There is. And I saw more women in Peshawar, more women in Kabul than I did in Peshawar, which is in Pakistan. So that was really eye-opening to me. Obviously, like Fergal said, so many questions which you think about in the time, which you don't necessarily have answers to, and there's so little on the internet about it. But I think going through solo was one of the hardest but most rewarding times of my life ever, and one of the most amazing experiences, but equally one of the crappiest. And I think it started amazingly. I was like, I'm ready for it. I'm ready for this intensity. And the first few days, everyone's saying hello, everyone's looking at your bike, and you feel like David Beckham, and you're like, I'm a celebrity. Like, wow, this is great. But then it just doesn't stop, and you realize you have no time to yourself. And I'm on a budget of £10 a day. Hotels are actually weirdly expensive in Afghanistan. They're something which is very outplaced. They're kind of $30-40, whereas in Pakistan they might be $5-6. So they're extortionate, really, for Asian prices compared to the food where you can eat out for £1, £2. So I'd ask in restaurants if I could just sleep in the restaurant, and everyone's all very welcoming to this foreigner. And fortunately, I think there's a bit of a superpower, which I'm very grateful for, having blonde hair. It just seems to be a bit of a miracle.
Mesmerizing, yeah.
Yeah, but then equally, it's like a Hercules in strength, but also in weakness. You have like men just touching your hair. So I'd be in these restaurants, put my sleeping bag and roll mat down, fall asleep. But I'd fall asleep with crowds of men staring at me. So I'd fall asleep in tents with kind of like ready for like someone to just touch me and just be like, and you have to be quite assertive in that situation. Just like, get off, I'm trying to sleep, please. Just give me a moment. And then you'd wake up with new men staring at you, new men touching your bike. Maybe there's a few Taliban people who you only really know they're Taliban in Afghanistan because they have a machine gun. There's no formal dress of police outfits or medic outfits. You know from the truck because there's a machine gun mount on it, and you know because they're carrying a machine gun or a pistol. That was really, yeah, really kind of eye-opening. And equally, that's led to one of my like scariest encounters where I thought there was just this like guy just shouting at me, a stranger, because he comes out in traditional Afghan dress, like 30 other men behind him. He was shouting at me to stop and shouting at me in Farsi. I stopped, tried to speak with him, didn't understand the word what he was saying. He didn't understand me, so I carried on. And then this guy just pulled out a pistol and shoots it over my head from about 5 meters away.
Well, yeah, nah, Bella out. I'm tapping out there.
That was nuts. But equally, you're in the situation of like, well, I'm not dead. My bike's fine. Am I in danger? Well, there's this nut job in front of me, so yes. But instinct just kicked in, and I just started shouting at him like, "Who the hell are you?" And then there's this Google Translate. Well, and then this guy who's not Google Translate, but this guy who spoke English came enough for me to be able to use Google Translate with him and get a story out. And it turns out he was the police, the guy who shot the gun. And it's like, well, just say police. I didn't think you were police because you didn't have a gun on you. So actually, there was no danger there. It was just I wasn't listening to him, and I guess he wanted to assert his authority. So that was one situation. Again, with the Taliban, 99% of them are lovely people, very friendly, very welcoming, always excited to see a foreigner and offer tea. But unfortunately, I had like a few run-ins which were quite intense. Getting turfed out of a restaurant I was trying to sleep in at 11, being told to cycle my bike, prodded and almost asked to repeat what they were saying, and some like pretty, like the classic things which are very not that, you don't hear them in Western countries, I guess. Like stuff like, I don't know how much I can say, but I guess it's very normal in Afghanistan to say the words like Allahu Akbar, which is God is great type thing. But I think we associate that quite negatively in the West.
We associate it with like an impending a cry that you hear before a terrorist attack, really, don't we?
Exactly.
Like, as a Westerner, that's where I've only ever heard it, but I imagine it's commonplace. But in our experience, it's not.
Actually, I think it's more in Afghanistan and Pakistan, almost more of like a God bless type thing, and it's much more thrown around. But obviously, that's a huge cultural difference. So they were prodding me, these Taliban on motorbikes with one guy was riding, the other guy had a machine gun on the back, and there was two mopeds I was cycling between, both just staring at me and prodding me just to say like Allahu Akbar and say different kind of mantras, which I didn't really know what they meant in Farsi, which was all quite terrifying. And they say, "Oh, we'll take you to like 5 minutes down the road on the bike," and then half an hour later, I'm still cycling. Like, where am I going? And I'm taken to this safe house, which is 10k the opposite direction of where I should be going. And they just take me to this. It's quite like scar. It makes me feel a bit sick thinking about it now. But they take me to this little room, two guys at the door with machine guns, and it's a room like not much bigger than probably most people's bathroom, with 4 or 5 Taliban in and me sat down. They're nice. They give me tea and like I think some bread. But then just through Google Translate, they just grill me of why I'm not a Muslim. I've been chosen by Allah to become a Muslim right here, and then they're followers, and they're doing God's work to help me transition. Let's do it now. Let's become like you can join us type thing. It wasn't. I think it's one of the times I felt, obviously very uncomfortable, but it was the times of just another like time of what if I say the wrong thing? So I'm there like, oh well, I don't know much about the religion. I don't know much about the faith. I need a bit of time to research, but everyone I've met who is a follower of Allah is beautiful and so friendly. So I have so much love for this religion. But equally, it's just putting you in between a rock and a hard place, really. And you have this man in Afghanistan, they have no almost awareness of like a personal bubble. So you have this guy's face who's kind of like 10 centimeters away from you, just like staring at you, asking these like quite hard questions to answer, all through Google Translate. Yeah, it was intense. And then after about a 40-minute grilling, I guess I was quite assertive, just being, look, I'm going to sleep. I can't do this anymore. It's about midnight. I almost just started like not listening to them, set up my like sleeping bag, roll mat, whilst they're kind of asking me these questions. And I said, look, I'm going to sleep. I'm really tired. I'm like, I need to go to sleep. And then they were quite okay with that. But then they all just actually set up their own blankets and slept all around me. So I'm in the sleeping bag with like my like wallet on me, with these guys who are literally like putting their machine guns underneath their pillow and sleeping like their faces half a foot away from me. And so it all felt quite.
Man, you can't make this stuff up. Like it's just oh my gosh. Like yeah, wow. Did you think it was going to I mean, how do you know? You don't know what it's going to be like till you're there, but did you think or have an idea of that type of intensity before entering?
No, I didn't. But then equally, I remember calling dad like after, and I was just there like, this is kind of what I actually came to Afghanistan for, dad. It's those things which you just never experience in any other country in the world. So in that sense, I
It's an
like,
odd thing to say out loud, Matt. It's an odd thing to
yeah,
say out loud.
it
Like
is.
you sort of want to be in a small room being interrogated, feeling threatened by guys with machine guns asking you to convert, and yeah, like that's a huge intensity.
It is.
It's more the feeling, the intensity of raw moments is what you're after, as opposed to maybe that specific situation.
Yeah, and I think it really opened my eyes to what like how vulnerable you feel, and it really opened my eyes. Actually,
Mm.
in that moment, I was my biggest fear was that I was probably going to get raped. It sounds maybe silly now from hearing the story, but in the moment, you have these five guys just sleeping so close to you. It's like, whoa, like, can I sleep in this
Mm.
environment? So that was definitely on my mind the whole time. And what happens if I didn't agree, or what happens if I said I was non-religious?
How long after that were you? Like, how much longer were you in Afghanistan for after that occurred?
That really tainted my vision. It was I've maybe had 5 days left, but I just after that moment, I just wanted to get out of the country really and just breathe.
Yeah.
So I just smashed out a few like longer days. Fortunately, it was desert. It wasn't too exciting. I didn't feel like I was missing towns and culture. And yeah, I finally, yeah, I like left to Uzbekistan maybe 3 or 4 days later. But after that, I think it really did traumatize me. And maybe I'm not fully over processing it even now because I've kind of stayed on the road. But I think, yeah, I think looking back now, I did just need to get out, but I definitely was much more closed off to locals and friendly locals who were, bless them, like lovely people. I just didn't really have the time and desire to want to chat or hang around, or I'd have people like men just crowd around and like, please just leave me alone.
Yeah, I think it's like there's an intensity to it that you can't judge yourself for how you react to that intensity. You can't be in the room where you are now in Sicily judging how you were in that moment, because that intensity is something that you've never experienced. You possibly will never ever experience it again. And in a
Yeah,
way, how you react is instinctively. So yeah.
yeah,
Whoa,
right.
whoa.
It's
What
yeah.
intensity? What experiences? Like Matt, that's nuts, right?
So much tense situations, and the roads as well. Some of the roads are just the dustiest places you've ever been. Just Afghan dust is this like Mars dust. You can just, it's so light, but yet it can be 4 or 5 inches thick. So you're crunching through this dust so horrendously slowly. Oh, it's an incredible country. And looking back now, I really want to go, and I really want to take some of my close friends there to experience it. But I don't think I'd want to go solo again. And I remember getting to Uzbekistan, going across this bridge, and wow, I just entered into a different world, like 200 years more advanced. Just the most starkest, like the most starkest border crossing I've ever come across. And there's restaurants, there's brand new cars, paved roads, no potholes. Oh my gosh, it just felt incredible. And I remember just getting there and literally just, I think I cried to myself, just cycling like the 5K to the little town, just like, wow, like I've done it. But equally, I'm so privileged to be able to leave and be able to just walk across this bridge, showing my passport. Whereas there's kids like 2K from that bridge, or even 200 meters from that bridge, who are literally coming up to you begging for food
Stuck there.
and starving, and they will never be able to leave that country, which is just so sick. And I think that's what, yeah, that's what's really painted the image of what like refugees, like there's so many people trying to find refuge in the UK and Europe. What's where some of these people are coming from, and I think people who are very anti-immigration, anti-refugees coming really just haven't put themselves in the shoes of where some of these people are coming from and the lives that they're living. Yeah,
I often think there's like ignorant. I don't even think it's an ignorance in terms of like an intended sort of malice or anything. I think it's just a lack of understanding, or well, there's definitely a lack of empathy.
It's so messed up, Bella. Just how we have this piece of paper which says we're from a developed country, from a wealthy country.
We won the birthplace lottery,
Oh, absolutely.
and our piece of paper gets us into nearly every single country that we could want to.
It's an absolute privilege which we all have, and we can't necessarily change that. But I think one of the little things we can do is just be aware of how lucky we are and be more open to just helping, supporting, welcoming people who have come from absolute atrocities. Yeah, it was a huge eye opener for me, but equally now looking back at it, definitely like a highlight of the trip. So many stories.
I wonder, Matt, before we move away from it, I wonder if it's a highlight from insights after the fact, if that makes sense. The moment wasn't the highlight, but what you've sort of drawn away from that has been the highlight.
Yeah, I guess it's definitely shaped my outlook of life differently. And I think what a really interesting thing for me is before I went to Afghanistan, I thought of it as it's this war zone. It's very corrupt. There's lots of almost locals fight, and they've been fighting British forces and American forces for decades, and before that, Russian forces. But you get there and you realize, like, wow, there's women and kids and men who are just lovely, nice people trying to have a calm life. There's people my age at university just trying to learn English, and they're all not they're not intense, they're not aggressive, they're not wanting war at all. Everyone I met didn't want violence, and they were grateful for the Taliban in that sense of bringing that. This is really interesting. Actually, there was these Taliban I was speaking to, having met a Russian journalist in Kabul, and she told me that the Taliban were telling me that they preferred fighting the Russians to the Americans and the Brits because the Russians gave a proper fight. So I was asking these Taliban about it, and they were saying, we've always preferred fighting Russia because they'd actually meet us for a proper scrap, a proper gunfight, whereas Americans would just bomb us and just blow us up. So what's the fun in that? Which is really, really eye-opening in the sense of like,
oh my gosh, that just does my mind in. Like the idea of like, yeah, whoa.
the intensity of the people. I think when you say like a fight in Afghanistan, they mean a gunfight, and they like some of the Taliban, some of the locals, they're so passionate about their love for Afghanistan. We don't have that in the West. They literally, in 5 minutes time, if there's an invasion or a attack on Afghanistan, they're willing to put their life there and fight for it. So you have the mentality of people who love their country, but they know it's broken.
Yeah. Whoa. Gosh. What intense. Wow. We've gone to some intense places in this pod, haven't we?
Yeah. Well, I think you see the turmoil of Afghanistan and you realize that no superpower is ever going to take Afghanistan away from its people. It will just bury it deeper into poverty. And I think a lot of what the US, the UK, Russia before that have done to that country is nothing but just cause pain and suffering to the people. Really interesting. Just walking through Kabul, so many people with just missing limbs. A family welcomed me in Kabul because I had these really weird stomach pains, which was quite terrifying. Just out of nowhere, very spontaneous. Just almost keeling over. I couldn't walk or I couldn't cycle, and this family just let me sleep on their floor for 2 days. But one of the brothers was missing a leg. Another brother had died. I think an uncle had like eye problems, and it's like, oh, you're missing a leg. Like, what happened? It's just, oh, I was shot by the Afghan military, like almost like friendly fire. But you just have these stories just so prevalent and everywhere. It's so eye-opening, just how much these people have seen.
The impact of it all.
Really prevalent. I was in Kabul during when Pakistan hit the city with airstrikes. Felt the ground shake, heard these massive explosions, and it was terrifying. And I'm there just almost like, whoa, what do I do? Do I call my dad? Do I like not? Or what's going to happen? And I just asked these Afghan locals, and they were just so chilled, like, look, let's just have some tea. The city's seen worse. We'll be fine. And there's that whole mentality of they've seen so much in their life.
I feel we're fortunate, Matt, where that isn't commonplace for us. Like, I don't want to ever have that to be my normal. Like, it's so horrendously sad that that is their normal, and we are extremely privileged for where we're born and the opportunities we have that we can, put stuff on a bike and ride around the world. Wow. But yeah, it's just not normal, is it?
It's not. And I think M. Hulbert summed it up really well of even like in your darkest days when you're going through headwind, running out of water, pushing your bike all day, actually you're doing it out of privilege and you know it's not going to last forever. We have this comfort of that, which, yeah, even when you think it's so hard for you as an individual,
We can tap out.
we can tap out. And there's millions and billions of people there who just can't tap out, who are living harder lives than pushing your bike uphill all day, every day.
Absolutely. Speaking of M, I have a question to you from her because I knew that you bumped into her on travels. What a way to tone the podcast tone differently, right? What a segue. Don't mean to do that, by the way. People who listen to this show know that we have these sort of conversations, but she wants to know, Maddie, if you could have the power to speak any one language during your trip, which one would it be and why?
Wow. Well, I think, fortunately, very blessed with being able to speak English. I think that is the superpower language, and definitely take that for granted. So privileged. And I think, you meet people all over the world who are so almost amazed that you speak English. And it's like, well, yeah, English. But people I'd want to connect with more, I think, is what other language I'd like to speak. It's probably Mandarin or Farsi. Mandarin for China, just so many amazing Chinese souls. And Farsi, I think, would really allow me to just see a different side of South Asia and the Middle East. I think that would be very special.
Maybe you'll be tabbing into some language learning podcasts as you cycle through Tunisia, Algeria,
hopefully.
Morocco.
Hopefully. I'm really, really bad with languages, Bella. Terrible.
Oh, don't worry. I'm learning French for the rest of my life, Matt, so I won't ever judge you. On that note, though, I do sadly need to bring this pod to an end. I've got 3 questions. You listen to the show. You know what they are. First one's music related. What's your song going to be, Matt Whitley? You choose a song to be the soundtrack to your adventure. You go on the Seek Travel Ride music playlist available on Apple and Spotify. What's it going to be?
Such a big question. I think I'm going to put Dancing in the Moonlight by Thin Lizzy.
Oh, I love it.
I think it's just such a nice song to put in your head if it's dark and rainy and wet, or you're cycling uphill. And I hope that can bring a bit of spice to people. Yeah, I'll probably go for that. Although there's many, many other songs now which are bustling into my brain, which I should probably say.
No. It's the first one that's come up. That's you. So next time you put it on, you can think of our pod conversation. All right. Next question, Matt. We did talk about it a little bit already. You're given a choice one day. You can be on the most beat-up, corrugated washboard road surface ever. No smoothness, bumpiest stuff. It's going to break your bike. It feels like it's going to break you. Or go the other way, and instead all day you can be battling into a horrendous headwind. Which one are you going to choose?
Can I turn around? Has anyone ever said that? I'd probably just faff.
I have had people who've just said that they just wait a day.
What about going straight on? No, I think I'd pick the brake bumps. I think it takes you to. I think normally on a brake bumpy road, the views and the place you're in is probably more special and probably more aligned with places I'm going to go. And equally, I just have no head for headwinds. I'm so weak with them, Bella.
I knew you weren't going to choose the headwinds from what you said before. Do you know what it's made me realise? No one, Matt, has ever said that they'd choose the corrugations and just hike a bike. Maybe that's the answer. Anyway, we'll never know. Last question for you. Oh, it makes me sad to say that, but last one. I want you to finish this sentence for me. And that question, Matt, is the best thing about taking a bike adventure is?
The people and the places it takes you. And the places it takes you literally and physically, but also mentally in your own head. Oh, that's such a huge question. But I think the people you meet along the way really just make you feel so welcome. And you realize you can be in the most remote place you've ever considered in the world, but there's still people living there. And there's people there who are 100% willing to help you. So I think that should just give everyone confidence of, do the thing and have the power by going on this crazy remote route? Absolutely, because you're going to have people along the way who are like 100% your biggest fan, who have never probably heard of the city you were born in or the city you live in, but that equally will just show you more love than you think fathomable.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Like it is. And, you know, if I think of it as well, Matt, you know, in all the stories you've shared, it's the people who ultimately have shaped every single experience that have energized you as well. You know, and think about the Tibetan monk that's helping you, you're having a tea with out in the middle of nowhere, to, you know, the lady in the restaurant who's taking the two goslings off you, you know, like little
100%.
different things.
Yeah. I think dad really saw that actually when he came out. It was really special because we were probably a 20k to a big town where we were going to book a hotel, and he was adamant on the hotel. And I said, like, Dad, like, we can just ask someone to sleep in their garden, or we can just like camp here. And he's like, no, there's like, and there was dogs, so we didn't feel like we wanted to just camp out on the edge of the road. So we just asked his family, oh, can we sleep in your garden? And they were so welcoming. And I think it's probably, if you ask Dad, it's probably one of his favorite experiences of the whole trip. They let us in, and then they like said, oh, you need to eat. So they gave us food. They put a blanket out for us to sit and eat on this rug. And they just had a engagement party. So they were all so happy, and the whole family was there. They all wanted to see us. We spoke to the grandma, and we're just given this endless like tea, delicious melon, meat. And then at breakfast, the dad sits with us throughout whole breakfast, and they speak so little English. There's only the middle children, I guess, who haven't got the tiny kids, who are, I guess, 30 years oldish, speak English, but they're translating for their dad. And it was just golden. I just saw like Dad's just face just light up, and after that, he was just like, "Wow, you were so right. People are so nice, so much more exciting than just staying in a hotel or hostel, and just lifelong memories." Yeah, that's for me, which really stands out, is a story about people, which completely changed by asking people just a simple thing of being able to sleep in their garden. You have so much more of a diverse, brilliant experience. And I think Fergal said that actually, if you don't stay with locals, have you actually really visited the country? Which really hit home.
He's a big believer in that, and it's something that he really believes passionately. As an Irish person, he wants to welcome someone in his home, because until you've stayed in their house and seen how they live, you don't really know how they live. So yeah, we spoke about that a lot just when I saw Fergal a couple of weeks ago. Amazing, right?
Yes, I'll be giving the generosity from the people I've received. I'll be giving it back for the rest of my life. Just so much beauty.
There's a common thread that many guests has shared, that you can never pay it forward enough. And it's one of those things, it feels, you know, if I could magic wish something, everyone could experience this even for a week or a month, to have that ingrained in them. Imagine what the place would be like. But wow. Oh, Matt Whitley, what a damn good conversation. I knew it would be. I knew as soon as we lined up. I knew as soon as you told me, Bella, I've found a place to record. It's in a police station, and you know they fed me coffee and croissants. I was like, okay, this is going to be an epic. This is going to be good. It's been a long one, listeners. It's a long episode, but I'm sure you've appreciated it as well. There's so many ways I could wrap your adventure up, Matt, but it would be wrong to do so because it's not finished yet. So what I want to do instead is go back to a quote that I found where you wrapped a year up, and you said, it's been a year of living the dream, a year of living mostly in a tent, under the stars, washing once or twice a week, living like the dirtbag our 20s are designed for. More importantly, however, it's a year I've met endless amazing people, I've been shown hospitality unbeknownst to my younger self, and experienced a world far less crazy than the media leads us to believe. What a gift to yourself to have given yourself that life lesson from a year on the road. You've still got a few months of this adventure to go. I can't wait to see what's going to happen. I know we're going to connect again for another session. You got to come and visit me at some stage as well. Maybe I need to visit you in Manchester. Then I'll know how someone from Manchester lives. All to say, Matt Whitley, what a damn pleasure it's been. Thanks so much for sharing your stories and experiences here on the pod for Seek Travel Ride.
Bella, thank you so much for having me on and letting me join the Hall of Fame of the Seek Travel Riders. It's been an absolute pleasure, and I'm so excited to chat soon.
There we go, listeners. That is the end of my conversation with the amazing, adventurous Matt Whitley. Wow, what an adventure he's had so far. As I said right there at the end, it's certainly not over for him yet, but also just hearing him speak there about how much his experiences have shaped him into how he's going to be moving forward, that impending sense of always wanting to pay things forward, the people shaping and making those experiences, and how he's realised that he has sought out the raw and intense moments in this journey, whether that be from the hard, rugged trails to the crazy, intense moments he experienced in places such as Peshawar and, Afghanistan there as well. Yeah, what an incredible traveller. It sounds like he had an incredible upbringing with his family to shape him the way that he is. And I love that he's able to share some of his venture with his parents and his sister as well on this journey. And yeah, what an incredible gift to speak with someone like Matt for the show. Now, listeners, if you are loving these sort of episodes on Seek Travel Ride and you want to show your appreciation for the podcast, you can do so by buying me some virtual coffees. Head to buymeacoffee.com/Seek Travel Ride. Buy me some virtual coffees and let me know what is it that you love about this podcast and where is your next bike adventure going to take you. And until the next episode, I'm Bella Malloy. Thanks for listening. And that's the end of the episode, listeners. Don't forget, be sure to check out Old Man Mountain, who are supporting Seek Travel Ride this year. I am a massive fan of their gear, and I 100% recommend you check out the Hemlock bags and flip cages, a super handy and robust bag and cargo cage system. I love them, and I'm sure you will too. Head to oldmanmountain.com and support the brands that support this podcast.